Hi, welcome to PDQ Live. Today we're going to talk about kind of a hot topic, VMware alternatives. Everyone's kind of a little riled up about Broadcom, right?
Yeah.
We have a special guest today, David. Welcome, David from Presidio. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course.
So unless you've been living under a rock, we all know that Broadcom acquired VMware. Mm-hmm. And with that comes some changes, and it's kind of shaken up the industry of, oh no, I have to change things, I have to do all of these things, and like a knee-jerk reaction was almost the default from the entire community. I think today what we want to do is kind of maybe take a step back from that knee-jerk reaction and think about what this actually means in terms of risk management, in terms of your roadmap and next steps forward. Because really what this happens is now we need to mitigate the risk, right? And the perceived risk is a financial risk to the business, but there's all kinds of other risks that need to be explored as well. All right, David?
Yeah, definitely. As you start to peel it back, there are several different layers that we need to take a look at. You really need to assess what's right for your business, what does your existing technical roadmap look like, and then how does this piece fit into it? Because we really should always be reassessing what solutions we're leveraging. Is it the right fit both from a technical standpoint, and does it make cost sense for us? And as we move down that, it definitely brings out a lot more than just kind of the initial knee-jerk reaction of, hey, prices have increased. Yeah. And we've seen pricing increases across the board in general in our current environment, and the financial kind of market that we're in right now. But as this comes on and we take a look at what's the best thing for our business, we really have to assess the risk to making changes. And are those changes worth making based on what we do from a risk assessment standpoint? And really, what's the best path for our business?
Yeah.
So let's back up just a second. You're a system architect, right? That's your role?
Solutions architect, yeah.
Yeah, solutions architect. And what your business does is you come in and help people do this road mapping, right? You look at systems, and maybe tell us a little bit about that first.
Yeah. So I work for Presidio, which is a systems integrator. We resell technologies, but we really put together an overall solution for our customers to meet their business needs. And as we do that, we take a look at what the best fits are for them and what they need from a solution standpoint. And most oftentimes that goes down really to the applications. What applications support your business, and how do you provide those to your customers, whether the customers be external or your internal customers. And so we work with manufacturers, software resellers, cloud providers. My role and my job is to really pull all those pieces together and then bring in our experts in each area to make sure that everything's going to work together as planned.
Okay, so you might have had a plan before this acquisition, and now
you probably still have a plan, right? You have this long-term roadmap, right? You're like, this is where I think we're going to go in the next 5-6 years, right? So maybe this Broadcom acquisition, what it does is it accelerates your plan.
Yeah, very much so, May. Most companies have some kind of a cloud footprint.
Yep.
That's kind of a roadmap. They may have a cloud-first strategy. They may have a hybrid cloud strategy. And when you look at what that strategy looks like, if you're really going to move into a cloud environment, then you're looking at typically refactoring applications to be able to run in the cloud.
Yeah. And you're probably going to have to re-architect the way that your users are interacting with those applications. So it's not just this IT impact. This is a business-wide impact, because now workflows might be changing across the organization. And what does that mean for your business?
Correct. Yeah. And as you look at that, as users are interacting, if you're in an office building, we're sitting in an office building today, if you have a data center, that connectivity to the data center may be in the same building. If you're moving things into the cloud, you now have to have connectivity up in the cloud, or do your clients actually sit dispersed out across multiple regions in the world or the United States or wherever? And are you going to now look at deploying into different regions and being able to provide operational efficiency that way? Yeah. So big differences versus your traditional data center if you're going down that path and that road.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what's on the audience's mind, what everybody wants to know right now is like, what I'll just switch, right? I'll just switch to Proxmox. I'll just switch to AHV. I'll just switch to all of these things. I think there's a larger kind of impact that comes into it when you think about that type of architecture switch. There's a lot of risk involved in that. There's some human capital risk. There's some OpEx risk. There may be a training risk. Like, let's talk through those things of why might it be scary and look easy on the surface to just, well, I'll just move to Nutanix or Nutanix. I never know how to say it.
Yeah. And that's really kind of what I've seen from a conversation standpoint is, hey, what do we do, right? There's a reason why VMware has owned the market share, right? They're very good at what they do. It's an excellent platform for virtualization, whether it be desktop or cloud, and or server virtualization, any one of the three, really. And there are skill sets out there. So if you go look at hiring resources, pretty easy to find somebody with VMware skill sets and experience.
Yep.
As we get into other areas, because there's not really a market demand that's been driven up to this point, those aren't necessarily out there, and you need to look at what the costs are that you're going to have to pay in hiring those. And then what's your ramp-up time if you're going to skill up your existing staff?
Yep.
How is that going to go? And then you also have to look at migration.
Sure.
But all of that aside, the first thing that I typically talk with customers with that knee-jerk reaction is, well, wait a minute. First, what is your roadmap in general? What's your business plan? What's your technology plan that aligns with it? And then you've got to look at your applications. Because if you're saying, like you said, Nutanix, hey, we want to look at Nutanix as a option, right?
Yeah.
And go to AHV and go with their native KVM based hypervisor, all in one bundle. There's pros and cons, but are your applications supported on that? If you call up your software.
Some
support
ERP,
right?
and it's
whatever
got
it is.
Yeah, that fine print that only supported on Microsoft Hyper-V and VMware vSphere.
Yeah,
right.
And you call in and say, "Hey, we're having a problem." Even if you get it to run, and they say, "Well, what hypervisor is this on?" They'll tell you, "We'll get it on a supported hypervisor, and we'll be happy to help."
Yep.
You don't want to get into that scenario. And then there's the cost of the migration.
Sure.
In either time, resources, or you can go have Presidio help you with migrations. We have resources that could do that, but there's still a cost to that.
Yeah.
And so you really have to weigh all of those things out and look at what the risks are for you, and then look at your timelines. And that's the other thing is it's not something that's really feasible in most environments to typically just flip a switch in 30 days.
Yeah, right? and everyone, at least from what I saw on most of the internet forums, was like, oh, this outrage, this we have to wholesale migrate. But that's probably not ever the actual answer, right? Let's look at a scaled out approach. Like, are you actually using all of the features in your current VMware stack? Like, do you need Enterprise Plus? I don't know what they've translated it to, but do you need all of that?
Yeah, and as you look at that, most of the Enterprise Plus is now what's called VVF foundations, and that's one of the big key things to take a look at is with the licensing change, there's optimization that can be done because we're licensing now by core. And so look at your hardware environment, make sure that you're on a core basis. VVF or VCF is a 16-core minimum per socket. So you want to make sure, if you're running an 8-core socket, you're really not optimized from a licensing standpoint.
You should be trying to at least match that, just like everybody did in the early days of VMware when it was per socket based. Everyone shoved as many cores onto that die as they possibly could.
Yeah. And the other pieces to look at is with VVF and VCF, there are pieces from an operational standpoint. When you look at the ARIA suite, which viewers out there may know it better as VROPS, what it used to be called. But within that suite, there are a lot of products and technologies included in your licensing that you can leverage and optimize. So if you're already paying for it with your VMware licensing, maybe you can cost optimize and maybe move out of something else that you're already using for network log monitoring or those kind of pieces, right?
Yeah, so this acquisition isn't only bad news. Like the press that it's got has been only bad news. But the consolidation of a lot of these SKUs, in many cases, might not be such a horrible thing.
Correct. It definitely simplifies things. And when you look at where Broadcom's going with it, really they want to provide the best experience possible with what they're putting out there.
Yep.
And so with VCF, you're going to get a technical account manager, somebody who knows your environment, is going to work directly with you. So these are pieces that, as you dig down and peel back that onion, that you realize, there are some additional values that are there, but you need to look at it and determine, are the applications I'm running on there, do they warrant that? Do they leverage it? Yeah. Is it worthwhile? Customers in general are looking at it. It's not just Broadcom, right? Yep. It's not just VMware. But everything out there, we're looking at SaaS options. Are they more cost viable for us?
Sure.
Cloud options. Is that a better way to go? Does it fit our business model better? And so we should be making that assessment, and we should be doing that on a continual basis.
Yeah, like this shouldn't be the trigger, is basically what we're saying. Is like an acquisition like this shouldn't be your trigger. It should be another input, because we should be constantly assessing what services do I need to provide to the business to operate, and then what tooling do I use is that secondary question. It's always that first question first. What do I need to offer the business? And then what is the best tool for it? Right.
And then how do we optimize that tool?
Yeah.
Right. After that, to be cost efficient, to function for us optimally. And what's the best way to leverage and pop that out there? When we look at it, real world, we'd all love to run the best in breed for every product, but we have to assess what's good enough and what meets our cost needs for our applications. If it's our top tier application that drives business value, that's that's our golden egg. Yeah, it probably does. If it's a tier 3 application, maybe it doesn't.
Yeah.
Maybe you can use alternate platforms with more basic functionality, and that's good enough.
Yeah, maybe you're in a situation where you have to run your ERP on VMware. Like you have to, but nothing else has to be run on it, right? So maybe you license 2 hosts as an HA pair to run that ERP system, and then you can migrate everything else off. This isn't an all or nothing situation.
So you're curtailing your licensing.
Yeah.
I really want to ask this question, though, because I looked at the different VM solutions that you were talking about, and you talked about the human capital and the cost of that and the risk of that. Are they that different? Like, if you know how to work one vCenter solution, can you learn the other ones? How much time are we really talking about to
So I think even in your statement, right, vCenter solution. vCenter's VMware specific.
Brand name, sorry.
Right.
I did my brand name recognition, sorry.
But that's how we do.
Solution. I know.
We do.
Yeah.
We associate it because it is the market leader. It is really, kind of it's the Ferrari, right?
Yeah.
And so is there a learning curve? Yeah. But it depends on the environment. And when you're looking at complexity, if I'm running a basic vanilla virtualization environment, maybe there's not a big learning curve in just spinning up hosts. The concepts are generally the same, to answer that portion of it. But if we're doing other things that leverage other pieces of that VMware stack, if we're using ARIA, if we're using DRS, if we're using HA, if we're using distributed switching, if we're using NSX with virtualized networking, that's a whole different ballgame, right? Than just saying, hey, I'm going to stand up a few servers in a remote office situation.
Yeah.
So there are some big differences.
There is.
Depending.
If you're this little 3-host shop that's not doing anything fancy, I run 6 or 7 servers, nothing else. Right? You can probably sub in any hypervisor there.
Yeah.
Anything would probably do it for you. Now, if you're, hundreds of hosts using distributed resource scheduling and distributed switching, and you basically built your entire deploy pipeline with Power CLI or the VMware APIs, this change becomes way different. This is a different animal at that point.
Yeah.
Correct. And, what I'd say is, as you take a look at that, a lot of times what I see is, what are my alternatives? Can I run maybe 2 environments?
Yeah.
And what's the best fit for me?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So as you take a look at that, a couple of ones out there that I would say take a look at depending on your needs. You mentioned Nutanix.
Yeah.
So Nutanix AHV, very contained environment.
Yep.
Hyper converged. You can buy it on multiple compute platforms. So whether you like HPE, Dell, Lenovo, Cisco, you can run Nutanix on that. Only caveat is you have to have the same underlying architecture for a cluster.
Okay.
So I can't mix those in one cluster.
Okay, so if I'm buying a bunch of hardware, I'm either an HP shop. I'm not throwing in some UCS chassis for fun.
Yeah, and so you can purchase that that way, but it's a very contained environment. You're going to be able to do a lot of the same functionalities within the same platform as what VMware does from an HA standpoint, DRS, some of those things within AHV. Also can do microseg and some of the virtualized networking.
Okay.
But very contained, right? So if it were me looking at it, do I have a hardware investment today that's on the book, so to speak? And I've got to now look at, if I completely replace that and bring in Nutanix, I can't really just throw that on my existing hardware.
Yeah. So Nutanix is great. Like if this lines up for you and you're not using all of those high-end VMware features, that might be a really great option if you're timing this with a hardware refresh cycle as well, or if your current hardware supports it. Let's say I'm in a situation where I'm mid hardware refresh. I now don't have licensing for VMware. I can't justify the cost. What do I do? Give me some options. Give me some other hypervisor options.
Yeah. So the thing I'd say very first, identify your applications in your environment. Know your applications.
Yep.
Right? Know what platforms your applications are supported on. That's where to start. Because we pick something else, if it doesn't support the applications, which is really our business driver.
Yep. So
Right.
I'll give a scenario because I'm watching the chat here and everyone's like, stop defending VMware, Broadcom. All right. I get it.
We're not.
I get it, right? It's just the reality. So let's take, for example, I'm just a strictly Microsoft shop. I currently use VMware on 3 hosts. I serve Microsoft clients like a file server, DCs, that type of thing. My virtualization needs are pretty minimal.
Yeah.
What should I be looking at?
Yeah. I mean, Nutanix is a good fit.
Okay.
Nutanix has files, which can be served as actually a file server right off of there.
Yep.
You could also look at Red Hat, any one of the KVM flavors that are out there, really. From a Red Hat perspective, OpenShift is kind of what's being pushed in that arena. OpenShift is containerization.
Okay.
Right. But
So I'm changing changing the paradigm here.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's one migration option, is to get into containerization, and that goes into your DevOps and developing your applications to work in containers, which gives you some good portability. But you can also still, with OpenShift, manage Red Hat virtualization and go with traditional virtualization that way.
Okay.
Right. So you can kind of have a hybrid environment. If you want to move towards containers, that might be a really good one to look at. Proxmox, you mentioned it, right?
Yeah.
I use Proxmox at home.
Okay.
Great for pretty basic virtualization environments, but support's an issue. Skill sets may be an issue. So, those are the things you kind of got to look at when you start getting into more of the outlier pieces there. And then, of course, HyperV.
Yeah.
Announcements coming out from Microsoft on HyperV and some additional scalability that they put into the environment. So HyperV definitely is an option. Again, look at your application support. Right.
Hyper-V can be attractive in big Windows shops, especially with data center licensing.
Correct.
Right. You pay a lot for it up front, but then anything you're running underneath it's covered. So if you're, sick of paying the Microsoft bill as big as it is an option.
Yep. It's the same consideration, right? If you already are a big Microsoft shop and you have Microsoft licensing, optimize that.
Yeah.
Hyper-V might be a good fit for some or all of your environment, definitely.
Yeah.
And, when you move into Hyper-V, skill sets are a little bit different. You're going to have a little bit of a learning curve. But ultimately, yeah, it's an enterprise platform, can certainly work and
Solid
work
support.
well for you. The support is there from that standpoint. Overall, those are probably kind of the three that I see the most out there. It would be Hyper-V, Nutanix, and Red Hat, or and when you get down to the KVM flavors, I mean, there's a bunch out there.
Yeah, everybody's forks that into their own.
Yeah.
So I think something you brought up in your last point was there's the support there, right? Like that's a bigger piece of this puzzle that I think people want to realize. Like, well, I haven't had any problems yet. But if you've ever been in that situation where you have a problem and you need vendor support, it's really nice to not have to go crawling through a forum hoping someone can reply.
Correct. Right? Yeah. And when you look at support, that's one of the things to know with the new licensing from Broadcom. VCF is going to get you that technical account manager. You're going to get that white glove support service. And that's that top tier. That's that top tier, right?
So what if I don't buy that top tier? Am I in a different category?
So what it's looking like now is, that's going to be third-party support. So, that's something to look at.
Okay.
It is going to be third-party support when you're below those levels. And
so that very traditionally been very good VMware support experience might change.
Yeah, it's an unknown right now, but it's definitely going to change. It's going to go to third party.
Gotcha.
Are they just trying to make people mad, David?
A lot of people ask that. No, I don't think they're trying to make people mad. I think, Broadcom's just following their business plan and what they're trying to accomplish. And they're also trying to develop what they believe is going to be an enterprise class product that supports their customer base that they're focusing towards.
Yeah, I think the thing that's kind of shifted for now is the ideal customer profile is now changing. And I think it's most frustrating for those that were in that ideal customer profile before and are now finding themselves as on the edge or out completely.
Sure. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah. The other one that you could look at that's KVM based, Zen. Zen server as well.
I've had experience with Zen. It's not my favorite. I'm just going to leave that one alone. Zen server has left me many nights sleeping in the office, so we're just going to leave that one alone.
We do have some questions queued up if you'd like to take a few.
I would love to take some questions, Kelly.
Let's go ahead and start with Power Burner. I know Broadcom from hardware, chips, etc. When did they make the switch to software and why?
Oh, man. All right. Then we can have all kinds of discussion here. So Broadcom owns a ton of different companies in their portfolio. VMware is not the first in the software space. I actually don't know their first, but this goes back to like the Brocade versus Cisco days.
Yeah.
This is deep roots at Broadcom.
For me, kind of date myself a little bit, but I worked for a DoD contractor for about almost 8 years. I oversaw their storage and virtualization globally. We ran Broadcom fiber channel switching, right?
Yep.
And so that was, Brocade acquired by Broadcom. They've made several acquisitions this way. They've learned, I think, from some of their acquisitions. So if you look at kind of what's going on now and just my opinion, but Brocade support, right, was always driven through resellers. They didn't do their own support typically. Cisco supported it. HPE supported it. Dell supported it. Whoever you bought your switch through supported it.
Was the supporter, yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So kind of caveats there. But when you look at even what VMware was trying to do, what Nutanix is trying to do now, they're saying we're not a hardware company. We're a software company who runs on hardware. So I think they're along those same lines.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, we have another one all queued up and ready to go. Love Veeam, love vSAN. If VMware becomes too costly, what are my hypervisor options running Veeam and expandable storage similar to vSAN?
vSAN itself, I mean, you have storage spaces with Microsoft that's out there that you could use.
I messed with it. It's all right.
Otherwise, Nutanix, definitely, if you're looking at that homogeneous environment in conjunction with Veeam, works very well. But from a vSAN standpoint, the licensing model changed there. as well with
Yep.
VMware. So, with VVF, you get 100 gigabytes of included storage per core.
So there's like a relationship to core to storage now.
Yes, for vSAN.
Okay.
So if you're going to stay with VMware,
Okay.
right? If you go over that, you've got to buy a separate vSAN subscription license, and that's cost by capacity.
Gotcha.
VCF is 100 or is 1 terabyte per core.
Gotcha.
So-
and then like in the free world, like if you're looking for something that's similar, you can spin up like a Ceph pool.
Yeah,
And
sure.
run it in Proxmox. Like if you want something free, you can go do it for free. There's open source software that'll let you do it.
Yeah, and for me, I really try to make sure I'm looking at what can provide you for support,
Yeah.
what can go into an enterprise environment that you'd want to run business applications.
Yeah.
In that respect. So
Exactly.
Okay.
Any more, Kelly?
Oh, yeah, we got a couple more. Is HP Anywhere Manager a good replacement for Horizon View? Example, notice is it PCOIP?
PCOIP.
PCOIP. Agent replaces VMware display driver and vSphere VMRC console black after user established PCOIP connection EUSA.
I've never used HP Anywhere Manager.
So the one thing, at least from my experience, I'd say is might be okay if you're on all HP hardware. That's the one limitation I've seen with kind of Anywhere Manager is if you're not on HP gear, then there can be some limitations.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
All right, we have a couple more. What are the up-and-comers? Which alternative has impressed you the most since the Broadcom acquisition?
You want me to go first, or you want to go
I
first?
have a front runner of something that we've looked at it doesn't fit our needs here at PDQ, but I think it's a cool company, is Oxide Computers. They're doing hardware and also the hypervisor / containerization orchestration layer. Very cool company. We just run a lot of Windows here, right? Like our software supports Windows, so we run a lot of Windows desktops, and it's just not quite there yet. We've been in touch with their sales team. We've had demos. We're like, hey, if we can get to here, I need you to get to here. It's just not there yet.
Yeah, for me, and I have kind of a broad view from a consulting standpoint that's maybe a little different from you, but probably Nutanix overall.
Yep.
From an enterprise kind of class scale. But it also depends on what are you talking about virtualization, because if it's virtualized desktops, there's some great cloud offerings out there.
Yep.
And virtual desktop is really kind of pushing that way. Nutanix sold off their virtual desktop piece. Broadcom is in the process
We'll see what happens with Horizon.
of selling Horizon, right?
Yeah.
So most of those I'm seeing going to a SaaS platform if it's desktop virtualization. But Nutanix is there. Hyper-V, I think you're going to see them start to, Microsoft is really going to put some effort in there, and they're going to start closing the gap. And I look at it from am I going to get support? Am I going to be able to find resources to run and manage and maintain this?
Yep.
If you have an environment where you're good with, pulling in bleeding edge new things, figuring it out yourself and running, Oxide, there's several of them out there that are pretty cool in the market. And we'll probably see some of those flush out and really jump into the space where we're not looking at thousands and thousands of machines.
Yeah, exactly. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to replace 1,000 hosts, right? Like, at scale, those outliers become a lot riskier.
All right, we have one more we'd like to throw at you. Which alternative has the most broad supporting software ecosystem? Sincerely, Brian.
From that standpoint, a lot of it depends on software specifically, but Nutanix and Hyper-V are the two that have the biggest subset that they support.
Yeah.
Pretty.
Does it
pretty
run on
clear-cut.
Windows? Okay, well, there you go.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I don't think we have any additional questions. Thanks, everyone, for joining us today. David, thanks for joining us as well.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, for PDQ, I'm Josh.
I'm Tara.
Thanks for joining our webcast today. Congratulations going out to Brian M. And I do believe Jason R., winners of PDQ swag. Please send us your info at webcast@pdq.com. Do us a favor and subscribe and like our YouTube channel and all the other fun things we throw up there on the YouTube channel. It makes us happy. And please join us in Discord as well. Have a fantastic week. We will see you back here next time.